Okay, here we are on the Metis Matters radio show, and of course we're going to start off with a waltz here today, unintentionally I might add, off a CD by Mr. Steve Pischke from Como Lake, or used to be from Como Lake in Coquitlam, and I thought I was playing Big John McNeil, and it sounded like Faded Love or something. Anyway, this is the Metis Matters radio show. My name's Ken Fisher. And, of course, we're here today to try and entertain you, the listener, playing a little bit of music, give you a few updates on what's happening in the Métis community across British Columbia, and somehow or other give you an update on the weather in Vancouver here. It's 8 to 10 degrees above zero. There was a big windstorm predicted, and it came, and it might be gone. Where I live in the city of Surrey, about 15, 20 miles east of here, there was a bit of a wind, but it wasn't quite what was predicted, although I heard on Vancouver Island they got it really bad, some very, very, very high gusts of wind, and with a 2 or 3 foot chop in the waters there between here and Vancouver Island. So if you're out there, and of course they canceled a bunch of ferries too. And here, on this day in March the 2nd, 2011. Spring is in the air, no doubt about it. Some people are putting in their gardens out here. It's hard to believe, but they're starting their plants. Not like it is on the prairies where it's 25 to 35 below in certain areas. So that's something about the weather. Anyway, we're very fortunate to be out here in the West Coast, having, the benefits of a moderate climate. We seem to have a construction project going up here above us, and somebody is banging on some metal up there, and I can't have no control over it. And neither has Mark, as he. Yes, thank you. This is co-op radio. All kinds of miscellaneous sounds come from up above, and you wonder why nobody tells the construction people that something's going on here. Anyway, so the point was, as if I were to get back to doing my radio show here, called the Métis Matters Radio Show, my name's Ken Fisher. I'm with the Nova Métis Heritage Association in Surrey, BC. We're one of the local Métis communities. We're somewhat affiliated with the Métis Nation BC. And, of course, we sign people up to memberships there, memberships in the Nova Métis Heritage Association. And, of course, we encourage them, if they haven't done it already, to apply to the registry of the Métis Nation BC and make application for their provincial Métis citizenship card. They have a registry at the head office. You can phone them anytime there, 1-800-940-1150. And they will tell you what to do or send you an application. Or else come into our office sometime and we can find a way to get you that application. But primarily when you come into our office, which is located, by the way, since February the 1st, at 10586 King George Boulevard in the Dell Shopping Center. Yes, folks, we're back in the Dell Shopping Center in the area of 106 and King George in the north end of the city of Surrey. And we're open for membership issues, usually on Tuesdays and Fridays after 11. And, of course, we have had, yesterday, for instance, we had several people in making inquiries about how they go about getting their membership cards to the Nova Métis Heritage Association. And after that, of course, we encourage them to join and to make application for the provincial citizenship card, which I have already, and many of us do. In fact, of the Nova Métis Heritage Association membership, almost 500 people have the provincial Métis citizenship card. Another 1,500 or so do not have it because they didn't probably think it was necessary, even though they're told to go ahead and get that. It's a two-part process. The downfall of that is when the election comes next year, in 2012, they will not be able to vote in the Métis election in BC unless they hold a provincial Métis citizenship card. Yes, I think there's a tinsmith working over my head here. But anyway, we can try and ignore him. And of course, we can think about going with some other CDs. Somebody was asking about a fellow named Stanley Beaulieu. We're going to play a couple tunes by him. Stanley Beaulieu. Now, let me think now. We have several numbers to choose from. One is a good one. Let's see. Dad's Red River. That's a good one. Number 4. I'm Ragged But I'm Right. How about 7? Interlake Swing. And then 3 Men on a... Anyway, how about number 9? Grouchy Old Man and Old Woman. That's a favorite. So we'll be playing those in a few minutes. But I want to bring you up to date on a couple of things that have been happening in the Métis community. A mere 10 days or so ago, we had the Métis Nation Governing Assembly, and it came to the point where we were all there, all 30-some presidents and the board of directors of the Métis Nation BC were there, and we had a 2 or 3 day meeting, and we tried to get an idea of what was promised to the people at the annual general meeting last September, the annual general meeting of the Métis and people in BC, and it had to do with the financial statement as outlined by the auditor. And we were promised, because of the huge debt that was evident, that we were going to get a debt recovery plan of some sort. And that was more or less promised, like this was in September, so it was implied that by the end of the year, which is December, that we would have this debt recovery plan in place. Nothing came, of course, so we waited till January, and finally in February 18th, 19th, the Métis Nation Governing Assembly, that's where all the presidents come down to a meeting, and they're supposed to be the ones that set policy and procedure and all that. So the fact of the matter is, when they kept saying, oh yeah, we have a recovery plan, but you know what? All they did is give us a template of what they're going to do. It took them 5 months to decide to tell us, the Métis electorate, the people who elected that board, they're going to tell us what they're going to do. They had 5 months to tell us that. I think it's a fraud that they would go that far and not come up with anything new about how they're going to get themselves out of debt. See, when you run out a lot of debt, you can't get yourself out of it unless there's some new money coming in. And you can't spend like a drunken, I shouldn't say drunken sailor, but you can't spend frivolously when you don't have another source of income. And so the consequence of that is, usually when that happens, you go into what they call an austerity program, and you start cutting back on expenses. And usually where you start, if you have 8 or 9 members of the board of directors, from the president on down, they all get fairly good salaries. The first thing you do is you cut the salaries. Cut them in half or something to save money. There was a time when those board members were all volunteers, except for the president and vice president, but they get travel time. Invariably, the president of the Métis Nation BC, when he gets elected, becomes the representative on the Métis National Council. And that is made up of the presidents of the 5 Métis provincial organizations from Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. And so there's all kinds of things that they're supposed to be going out when they go to Ottawa to represent us and lobby for more programs and services. Anyway, it was a sad tale. I was very disappointed. As a spokesperson and one of the presidents there, speaking for my membership, I was very disappointed I didn't get any answers from the people that we elected. Answers? They sloughed it off. They talk about a communications group, that a new communications method they're going to bring in. The best communication method is right now you're listening to it, the Métis Matters radio show. So what did they do in the end of November? Cut off what little expense money they were giving me to run this show. So I guess I guess I wasn't exactly saying what they wanted me to say. It's too bad. But all I try to do here is bring you the news, the updates, the situation as it exists, and of course, hopefully we're trying to bring you some good news. Anyway, I think the good news is we're going to play a fiddle tune. And, of course, we're going to go with number 4 off this fellow from way up north in Hay River, Stanley Beaulieu. Somebody was inquiring about him. Bev Lambert brought this thing down from way up north there when she was in Fort Vermilion not too long ago. And this number we're going to play right here, it says it's called Dad's Red River. So let's hear it. Okay, well, here we are back on the Metis Matters radio show from downtown Vancouver, BC. My name's Ken Fisher. You can give us a call here if you got a question or a comment about the Metis people. We invite phone calls. It's a talk show. We have a talk show here. We have an open line. 604-684-7561 is the number to call if you have a question or a comment on any subject about Metis people. Anyway, one of the interesting and unexpected happenings at the MN Métis Nation Governing Assembly there on the 18th and 19th was the unexpected resignation of Mrs. Rose Bordelon of Prince George. She was one of the 3 elected representatives who were suspended by their fellow representatives way back in January 2010. For insubordination. So as a result of that suspension, she never had a chance to do what she was supposed to be doing, which is to represent the women of the Métis Nation, because that was her position. So I have, as a consequence of that, I have somehow looked. I have seen her letter of resignation, and then there was another letter of resignation from the Region 6 director, Mr. Rennie Therian, a really fantastic fiddler, Métis person from the Northwest Métis region. He was also suspended. So, and before that, the fellow from Region 4 was suspended. Now, the reason those 3 were suspended, if I may take the time to remind you, is the fact that in the last 2008 election in September, 4 people were accused of electoral fraud. Some people said fraud or just misuse of funds, and they were accused of having their brochures printed by a printing company. The printing company then billed the Métis Nation BC up to, I don't know, it's up to the tune of $8,000 to $10,000, and they were accused of getting their brochures for nothing. And when they were accused of that, and of course precedent had been set in previous, when people are accused of things of that serious nature, the choice for them is to step aside and start an investigation to clear it up. Well, it didn't happen. Instead, they called a board meeting of the 8 remaining board directors, and they suspended their fellow board members for even suggesting that this could have happened. And yet there hasn't been much of a defense from those 4 accused. And of course, the other part of that, of the 8 remaining board members, the other 4 who weren't accused of anything, they backed the 4 who were accused of electoral mismanagement of funds. So they're just as guilty of things as anybody, as far as I'm concerned, because the fact that when you have 8 people and you suspend 3 of your fellow elected directors, what kind of a constitution and bylaws have we got? What's the point in electing people to a position and then they can be taken out at any given moment if somebody doesn't like what they say or they do? So they have both resigned now. And before that, a year before, Mr. Jerry Laguerre from Region 4, he was suspended too. He got fed up and he just resigned too. So these people had a right to be there. And I suppose they could have sued the board, but they haven't got the funds to sue. You can take these things to court, but you can't really, unless you have the money to hire a lawyer to sue the board of directors of MMBC, then you really would have to put out a lot of money. But if you did win, then of course you would be vindicated. But they weren't prepared to do that, and I guess they're not that rich, and so they weren't in a position where they could do anything like that. So guess what? So now they are no longer members of the board, and the consequence of that, when that was announced at the Métis Nation Governing Assembly, what really happened was that that immediately, as soon as we have 2 other resignations, that kicks in immediate by-election within 120 days, according to the Constitution. So there's going to be a by-election to fill those 2 positions. One position is from the Northwest Métis Association in and around Prince Rupert and Terrace. That's going to have to be a by-election to elect a new regional director. And in and around Prince George, where Rose Bordelon is from, she resigned as the women's rep because she was totally frustrated with the inaction. And of course, now they're going to have a province-wide election for that position, the Métis women's position. So that'll be coming, and let's hope it comes up within 120 days, as is stated in the Constitution. So these are things that happen. And of course, the mandate of the present board of directors, it ends in 2012 in September. So because of the lack of communications and what we perceived was mismanagement in the handling of the Métis funding and buying the school and all that, and putting and really digging a deep hole of debt, it's going to be a hard for any of those board members to get reelected. With one exception, of course, Terry Anderson. He got elected after that fella from Region 4 resigned. So the consequence of that was that when the people get back to the ballots in 2012, some of these people that are now holding positions as regional board members and the president and vice president are going to be hard pressed to maintain those positions. And of course, that is the part that we just lack good government. When in 2008 at election time, I think we were in first class position as far as the Métis Nation BC. Now there's all kinds of figures in the millions of debts. So it's just a damn shame. Consequence of that is we'll have to wait and see. There's no money for they don't support the locals. There's no money coming for the local Métis Association. There's 33 to 34 to 35. I don't even know how many local Métis charter communities there is in BC. But if there was, let's take a broad figure of 34. There's no money to support those locals. One of the few people, and one of the few that has an office, is the Nova Métis Heritage Association in the city of Surrey. That's the one. I am in there as a volunteer. We have an office in the Dell Shopping Centre, and we have people from our board of directors running a pretty good tight ship there, and we invite people to come in and see us and learn about the culture and the history of the Métis. it's an ongoing struggle to make sure that people know who the Métis people are. Anyway, let's go back to Stanley Beaulieu playing another fine tune. This one's called Interlake Swing. So we'll be right back. Okay, back on the Métis Matters radio show here from Vancouver. My name is Ken Fisher. Give us a call if you have a question or a comment about anything to do with the Métis, 604-684-7561. Anyway, I have the resignation letters of Rose Bordelon, who was the Métis women's rep. She sort of languished without a position after she was suspended for over a year before she finally threw in the towel. And here's her letter. To the Board of Directors, Métis Nation of British Columbia. Simpson Road, Abbotsford. Attention, Board of Directors of the Métis Nation of BC. It has been over 1 year since the Board of Directors of MNBC has suspended me, Mr. Gary Laguerre and Rennie Therrien, unjustly. This was in a direct response to the questions and concerns we brought forward regarding the MNBC directors utilizing Métis Nation money to pay for their election campaigns. I feel this matter was never addressed fairly and objectively. It has taken its toll on mine, Jerry's, and Renee's lives. We were duly elected by Métis citizens to represent their best interests, and I was honored to work for the Métis women of BC, but it has been challenging to keep a level of dedication and integrity in an arena where others feel a high level of entitlement and self-absorption. I have always taught my own children to never back down from a fight when you know that you are in the right. However, in my opinion, the level of corruption that is ensconced in the Métis Nation of BC dictates that I cannot reclaim my duly elected position. It is with great thought and consideration that I am formally resigning my position as the Director of Métis Women on the MNBC Board of Directors. I did not have confidence on that the MNBC board would address my concerns justly, since they do not believe that the funds taken from the MNBC for their campaign was unethical. Since I cannot agree with their governance, I am forced to distance myself from them and from the position that I was honored to have held. I am proud to have stood beside Renee and Jerry, and can leave knowing that I have work to do outside of MNBC that will still impact and better the lives of the Métis people of BC. Thank you to those who stood by me, my true friends and family. I'm stronger for having endured this and will go forward knowing that I was true to myself. Thank you, merci. Regards, Rose Bordelon, Prince George. Now that's her resignation letter. So at the moment there is no Métis women's representative for the Métis women of BC. Here's from Mr. Rennie Therian to the Board of Directors, Abbotsford, BC. Letter of resignation sent by email. Dear President Dumont, 3.1. The MNGA, that's the Métis Nation Governing Assembly, shall be composed of the MNBC Executive as represented by the President, Vice President, Treasurer, Secretary, plus the Regional Directors, Métis Women of British Columbia Chairperson, and a BC UMYC Chairperson. And B, the Presidents of the Chartered Communities of the Métis Nation BC. I apologize for not being here in person, but because President Bruce Dumont has again shown his true leadership qualities by deciding not to include Rose and myself in the travel arrangements to attend this MNGA in Abbotsford, I have asked Mr. Keith Henry to take this announcement to you on my behalf. It is with deep regret that I, Rennie Therian, have decided to resign from my elected position as the Northwest Regional Director. My resignation is effective immediately. The reason I choose to step down and resign is because I am no longer able to do my job effectively. The ongoing efforts to create dissension and turmoil in my region is dividing our communities and turning friends against friend. This needs to stop. Over the past 11 years, I was very proud to stand with the MNBC Board of Directors, Northwest Regional leaders, and their respective staff who work to promote and deliver programs that were accountable, transparent, and community-driven. But presently, for reasons I do not comprehend, our current MNBC leadership now appears to have discontinued being accountable to the Métis communities and our Métis citizens. The manner in which I, Rennie Therian, Rose Bordelon, and Mr. Gary Laguerre were forced to leave the MNBC Board of Directors, having been improperly suspended and without recourse, has not provided us with any justice, fairness, or compassion. No one will ever convince me, my wife, my family, friends, and supporters that this is the Métis way. The lack of true Métis understanding and fairness shown to us over the past year confirms that the individuals who supported such heavy-handed actions are not now, nor will they ever truly have the Métis spirit. I have no regrets for standing up with Rose Bordelon and Jerry Laguerre for the decisions we made in seeking answers for truth and accountability for our Métis citizens. We served the Métis people competently and with pride. In closing, I want to thank my family and the friends that I have made for all the support that you gave me and for all the opportunities to proudly represent the Métis Nation with the gift of music and culture. I will continue to make myself available to serve the Métis citizens and to share my experiences and the knowledge that I have gained over the years with everyone. I remain proud to be Métis, Rennie Therian, Northwest Regional Director, suspended. And that was sent to the MNBC Board of Directors, MNBC Chartered Communities, Métis Nation BC citizens. So that was a very regrettable thing that happened. They were never given what would be called due process to answer to the suspension. The very little reason was given other than they said their fellow board members called it insubordination, and then that's where it went. So it was a sad time, but like I said, it triggered 2 new elections for the Region 6 Regional Director and a province-wide election for the Métis Women's Representative. So that'll be coming up very soon. So a consequence of that is time for music with Stanley Beaulieu from way up north. It says, Hey River. Let's hear Stanley playing a number called Grouchy Old Man. So let's hear that. Okay, well, here we are back on the Metis Matters Radio Show. Just as a reminder, my name's Ken Fisher. This is the Metis Matters Radio Show coming to you from Vancouver on a kind of a nice evening where it's not too cold here on the West Coast because it's very moderate temperature. Oh, I think, as you know, we invite callers, so now I'd like to take the time to go to the lines and invite the caller on line 1 to go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Ken, it's Keith Henry calling in. How you doing?
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, Keith, thanks for filling in for me with me all these last few weeks. And, of course, now we're back to the routine where it's just me and the listeners on here on the air today.
Yeah, I'm sure your listeners are exhausted from hearing me anyways. But
not at all, not at all.
No, I just wanted to, I thought it was Wednesday and I was feeling like I'm missing something and I realized, hey, I'm not at the show. So so I thought I'd call in and say hi. Yeah,
well, I just read the resignation letters of Mr. Rennie Therian and Mrs. Rose Bordelon, and how sad that sounded.
Yeah, well, it's, as we all know, it's, the nation is where it's at and it's not improving and, it's, I think we're up for a lot of hard times in front of us. So,
well, I'm still a little bit upset about the financial position of the Métis Nation BC, having sat over there a day or two there, asking questions and getting no answers. So, as a president of a local of the chartered community, I was quite disappointed.
Well, I mean, I've we talked about this last week when I was there, and I just, as time goes by, I think about where we're at today, and we just got told we're another $720,000 in debt a couple weeks ago. There's no real debt recovery plan. If you go on the website today, there's still nothing. It keeps saying coming soon, and that's not how business works. It's just not. Not in the real world, and I don't know why our people should be expected to play politics with business. It's not. It's we got to do the right thing, and there's no answers today at all. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just got a chuckle. The coalition had put out a press release congratulating Christy Clark on right after it happened, and MNBC finally woke up to the fact that they should put a press release out 2 or 3 days after. So I thought that was quite amusing, quite frankly. So
yeah, she came up the middle and took it all. But actually, I was voting for another member of that, and his name was Kevin Falcon from Cloverdale, from my area. But however, be that as it may, I guess all we can hope for is that she has enough wherewithal to notice that the Métis are a presence here in BC and maybe do something.
Well, I'm pretty excited about Christy Clark. I think I'd mentioned on the show when I was helping moderate it that I thought Christy would be the person that was the front runner, and I actually predicted myself personally. I felt that she was going to win, and for me personally, I think that's not a bad thing. She's got no alliances. She had only one MLA backbencher supporting her. So I think with the new Liberal Premier designate, I think that she does know a lot about the Aboriginal community, or a fair amount. She was the former Minister of Child and Family Development, and I've actually met with Christy Clark years ago when she was in government at that time, and I know a little bit about her. And no, I'm actually quite. I think there's some optimism with her at the helm about. And I like her priorities, and she certainly is one of the people that understands Aboriginal issues. Yeah. Whether or not she can do anything about it is a whole other question.
Exactly. But the other observation I made was the fact that the Minister of Child and Family Development had a meeting last week, and of course the minister was Mary Pollock from Surrey, and interestingly enough, her mother-in-law, her former mother-in-law, is a member of the Nova Métis Heritage Association.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Well, for me, don't get me going about that Child and Family Development Forum, because I think that was the biggest waste of money I've seen in this province for a long time. So, I mean,
I agree. That's why I didn't go. But on another issue, the Métis, there's another commission in town for the people who are in the residential schools. Are you aware of that?
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yeah, I don't know. I must confess, I have not run into a whole lot of Métis people who were in residential schools.
Well, there are. I mean, my grandma was one of them, and so there are definitely people that have the experience. Now, whether or not she had a good or bad experience, I don't know, because she didn't really talk to me a whole bunch about it growing up as a child. But the fact is, that's something that's being put out by TRC, and I just not really sure what involvement we've had to date. I certainly haven't heard anything as a citizen.
Well, I think we could have gone down and attended, I'm sure, but But the thing is that I didn't see anything about the Métis on there.
Well, and it's really more focused at First Nations and then whatnot. Yeah. But I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, I think it needs to happen. But I actually know quite a few people working in TRC, and I just, it's a process. It's another federal government way to follow up with their apology in the House of Commons a few years ago, and I guess good for them. I'm not really sure the relevance of it for some of my family today, but I can't speak for everyone.
Another observation is in the village of Lebret in the Qu'Appelle Valley, where I'm from, near Regina, there was a Qu'Appelle Valley Indian residential school there. And it was like half a mile from where I went to Lebret Public School. And we looked at them, and they were all dressed in little uniforms. They used to parade them into the big Catholic church there. But we never had any interaction with them at all. Although my dad told me, and I realized this later, that the half of the economy of that village, the town of Lebret, was dependent on that big Indian residential school.
Yeah, they definitely had a big impact. And my family, my grandmother was around. There was a residential school in Duck Lake, Saskatchewan, and that's where my grandmother spent some time in school. But I mean, residential school is different for every individual. And I found, my grandmother brought me up very strong. A very strong Roman Catholic upbringing, and I think that's part of the influence of that experience. But
absolutely.
It's hard for me to understand exactly the issues for the Métis families because I'm not that as aware as I probably should be on this issue. So
right, I think there are. If we could identify any, for instance, in our membership at the Nova Métis Heritage, of people who were in there, I would have certainly have tried to include them, but I just was not able to come up with any names. So.
Well, the thing I found, though, the press release itself that was put out by MNBC, came out 2 days ago. So for me, I saw it come out. I actually didn't get it from MNBC. I got it through people like yourself that forwarded it on. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful, but it would have been nice to have this information well in advance. I guess but I've said that about MNBC for a long time. They're a day late and a dollar short, and every time these things come up, it's always at the last minute, and, it's just another example. So,
Keith, maybe we could look at, with optimism to the future, because they said they're going to put a whole new communication system in place.
Well, yeah, I guess, sure. And that's wonderful to say that. But, I can say that at the coalition, our coalition has been showing how to do timely communications with no budget and just volunteerism for 2 years now. Absolutely. So why does it always take MNBC? Their excuse for everything these days is we need more government money, we need more this, more that, otherwise we can't do it. Well, I guess maybe myself and volunteers in the coalition are unique anomalies because we're doing it every day. Ken, you do it all the time with the radio show on your website. It's just a poor example of management and leadership. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we're not going to move them, I don't think, now until the election time. So, and when that time comes, I think we're going to have to turf them all out.
Well, hey, my view. The sooner they're gone, the better. With the financial mess they've left, that's been more my issue from day one. And I saw that Child and Family Forum. I have to just make one comment. That's why I was phoning in. I actually attended that forum, and we were talking about the same issues years ago. It's not changed another cent. All it is to find a few dollars to keep these agencies going, which I agree we need at arm's length from the political organization. But nothing's changed. There's no change in legislation, and there's no new money into any of this, and I'm just really disappointed to see what I saw there. It probably cost $200,000 to put that forum on. I would have rather seen that money going into helping Métis children and care. That's where that money needs to go.
Well, when you were the CEO of the Métis Nation BC, I always looked at the situation where we were taking 2 steps forward and maybe 1 step back. In my opinion, in these days, we're taking 2 steps backward and trying grudgingly to try and gain 1 step forward.
Well, that child and family issue is the exact. I went back. I looked at our 5-year plan that had been accepted at one time, and people have said, "Oh, well, it didn't really matter." Well, no, that 5-year plan was approved by people like yourself in the governing assembly back in 2007. Yeah. And that plan talks about what we were supposed to do in all these areas, including child and family. It's now, 3-4 years later, nothing's happened. Nothing. And we have a meeting and they sign a, quote, historic agreement that says the same thing the agreement said in 2007. I don't know about you, but I feel like we're just getting a bunch of process and lip service. So
it is that, and of course we're just our office in Surrey is about 3 blocks from Metis Family Services, and we have absolutely no interaction with them in any way, shape, or form. I'm really disappointed with that. Nothing has changed, like you said, in the last 5 to 7 years.
Well, one of the fights I had when I was there was that trying to get our politicians to stand up for the fact that, we need these agencies. I don't disagree. We need the agencies. We need them to have certain amount of legislative delegated authority and the rest of it through the Child and Family Service Act. But they are not the community. And in the way it's always been proposed or moved along is that they represent the community. Well, our own leaders have talked about protecting the governance and legislation of the MNBC, allow this to happen on Child and Family Services. And there is defined communities. They're the Métis chartered communities like Nova and the other 34, 35 communities in this province. And these agencies need to do their job. They need to get paid to do their job, but they need to conduct themselves with the communities to be accountable. And that's not happening. It's not changing. And that forum was a huge disappointment for me. I thought actually things might be a step in the right direction. I just left feeling, what a big waste of time it was to even show up at that event.
Métis are getting short shrift again, and nobody's really standing up for them. So,
well, yeah, it's like I said, the leadership talks about governance and defending the governance, but they don't even defend the place and role of the communities. I don't get it. So, but anyways, Ken, it's time for me to move on. And
thanks a lot. Appreciate Keith Henry for phoning in, and we'll see what happens in the weeks to come.
Okay, take care, Ken.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Okay, well, that was Keith Henry, the former CEO, and, of course, the former spokesperson for the Coalition of Concerned Métis Citizens. And they have put together a really fantastic blueprint for debt recovery. But Métis Nation BC at that MNGA, the Métis Nation Governing Assembly meeting, they refused to even look at it. So, obviously, they have blinders on or something. Anyway, we're going to go to a well-known figure in Canada here. His name is Stompin' Tom Connors. Let's hear a number from him called Dominoes and Dice.
Once I knowed a guitar picker, lived his life in wine and liquor, running around one of them new machines. He was about the proudest feeling, wheeling, dealing, sneaking, stealing, aggravating as man you ever seen. Nothing but a midnight rambler, biggest drunkard and a gambler. He'd do anything that wasn't nice. Hunting, golfing, fishing, swimming, running around with about 40 women, playing dominoes and shooting dice. Then one night while he was dining, while that moon was brightly shining, with his secret love, he was so okay. He would laugh and call her honey, while she proudly spent his money, and they'd hug and smooch the time away. Laughing, joking, dining, dancing, planning parties and romancing, having fun regardless of the price. Eating caviar and chicken, strumming his guitar and picking, playing dominoes and shooting dice. Well, then his wife walked in and found him with that pretty girl around him. He started making headway for the gate. When he seen them gals dividing, he commenced to slip and sliding, but he seemed to know it was too late. Crowds began to getting thinner. They jumped up and left her dinner. No one seemed to have an appetite. Not a person dared offend her. Everyone jumped out the window. No one hung around to see the fight. Well, his guitar, she took it and swung it, and round his noodle she proudly hung it. Bruises, knots, and bumps began to rise. He commenced to squeal and holler, but she grabbed him by the collar, and then she plastered him betwixt the eyes. Well, he jumped up and tried to squeeze her, but she warped him across the beezer, pulled a pistol and shot him once or twice. When the wicked fight was over, he was laid beneath the clover. No more dominoes and no more shooting dice.
Stompin' Tom doing his usual thing. I hope he had a big stomping board. He kept knocking his cowboy boots on. So I hope you enjoyed that tune by Stompin' Tom. And of course, we're here in Vancouver today after a bit of a windstorm here on the Metis Matters radio show. My name is Ken Fisher, and of course, we're coming to you as we usually do, talking to different issues. If you need to contact us, we're easy to find. It's the name of the association is the Nova Métis Heritage Association, 10586 King George Boulevard in the city of Surrey. We're in the Dell Shopping Centre. Come and give us a call at 604-634-0119. We have, and if I'm not there, of course, the answering machine kicks in. And we're there Tuesdays and Fridays after 11. And we can help you with your genealogy if you want to become a member. Anything you want to know about the history of the Métis culture, you can come there and we will give you the answer, because we have an extensive library about who the Métis people are, where they came from. Your family name would probably come up. And the consequence of that would be that if your name is, like in my case, my name is Fisher, my mother's name is LaRocque, and all through, I can do a 5-generation chart of where we came from, where we all came from. Everybody wants to know where they came from. In the case of the Fishers, they came originally from Scotland, through New York, through Wisconsin, up to Red River, and eventually into Saskatchewan, into the Qu'Appelle Valley, where I came along some years ago. And, just lived a pretty ordinary life. We didn't even know we were Métis, I suppose, although we kind of knew that something was different. I went to Lebret Public School there, I guess, and I went to Campion College in Regina after I went to high school. And, of course, obviously, they were grooming me for the priesthood. But I declined. But I did learn a lot of Latin. And, of course, that's what you do. You learn to, in the Roman Catholics, they used to do the Mass in Latin, so you kind of had to study Latin. But anyway, that was always good. Helped my education, because half the words in the English language are derivatives of the Latin language. And, of course, Roman Catholic and Latin, it almost sounds like Italian. So the fact of the matter is, and of course I do speak a little French, so because of the fact that on one or two sides of my ancestry, there's French connections, Larocque, Peltier, Boyer, I could just go on and on. Robillard, from the valley there, we lived in a very prosperous and beautiful valley in the Qu'Appelle Valley near Regina. And had just an average childhood, I would think. Although there was a few things. But enough about me. Let's talk about where the Métis are in BC and how you can get a hold of different people. The Métis Nation BC still exists, of course, in spite of the fact that I've been critical of them. And the fact of the matter is, you can reach them by phoning their toll-free number, 1-800-940-1150. And, of course, they can be... by way of that number, you can ask any part of any question you want in the registry, and they're now located, the financial department and the registry are located at 201-101-14 King George Boulevard, probably about 4 or 5 blocks from where we are right now in the north end of the city of Surrey. So contact them and check the website. The website of the Métis Nation BC is mnbc.ca. Anything you want to know is on there. And, of course, speaking of websites, the Nova Métis Heritage Association has a nice website, too. And ours is called www.novamétisnewslink.ca. novamétisnewslink.ca. Check that out, and you'll see a big buffalo on there. And it'll tell you all about who we are and what we're all about. And, of course, we're part of the 5 other local Métis charter communities in the Lower Mainland here, starting from Vancouver to Langley to North Fraser Métis Association, the Fraser Valley Métis Association in Abbotsford, and, of course, the other one is in Chilliwack Métis Association. And There's 6 different associations between here and Vancouver, from Vancouver to out to the valley there. So the other thing is, apparently there's a new Métis association was formed at the last MNGA. It's called the Powell River Métis Association. And for some reason, they wanted to be affiliated with the island because they said they could take a ferry straight from Powell River over to Comox, and that sounds easier for them rather than coming down with 2 ferry rides down to Vancouver for any good reason. But the point was, it went through, and they are. I argued against it because I believe Powell River is on the mainland, but that's the way it was. It happened that way. When things happen that way and you get outvoted, the consequence of that is that what happens. But we're still going to be pursuing that because I believe that we have a right to be there. Because you know why? Because we believe that is part of the mainland and it shouldn't be affiliated with Vancouver Island. But I guess they're going to agree to disagree with me. And anyway, here we have another caller on the phone line. So go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Ken.
Yes, it is.
Ken, I just it hasn't been mentioned, but on the CCMC website, there's some great PowerPoint presentations. Métis History and Culture is one.
There's a Coalition of Concerned Métis Citizens website.
Yes, and there's some great. I enjoyed the Métis History and Culture presentation that was on there.
Well, it was a historic thing. I thought I saw that the other day.
And they have a new one now too.
There was about 36 pages.
Yes.
And it gives a complete history of almost from the origin of the first white man into North America, and right up to the present.
Yeah, I thought it was a great PowerPoint presentation. Actually, our family sent it back to the link back to Manitoba, so they could have a look too.
Oh, very good. Well, we're going to be probably making that into some kind of a presentation so we can hand those out, because I understand that Mrs. Erlene Bitterman from Hudson's Hope, BC, had a lot to do with that. I don't know where she got it.
Oh, well, if she's the one that did it, she did a great job.
Yeah, well, she's got a lot of skill on the computers and seems to get into the...